the 31st of May. That was my last day to teach school.
31st of May of 2013.
2013, right. 51 years altogether.
Good grief.
4 generations.
Was when you leveled out. So.
And I don't know, I could kind of average it out and figure out how many kids I had, but I don't have any idea how many altogether. Bunches.
But you started teaching in Ranger in 53, right?
I taught in 52. I came here in August of 52. Taught 52, 53. That was my first year here. Taught 5 years during that period. Taught homemaking only.
Mm-hmm.
Then married Richard, and we had Mimi, and I stayed home with her 10 years. I stayed home raising her. And when she was in, I believe it was 3rd grade, I'm not even sure, 3rd or 4th grade, they called me 2 weeks before school started and said, we need somebody to teach the high school social studies. We've got a good program going, but we can't find anybody. They'd been back to the teacher training schools and said everybody they found was not moderate, not even liberal, just radical. They were all radical. This was the time when they were hollering, burn down the federal buildings, and the girls were burning their bras, and it was, hell no, I won't go to Vietnam, and that was it. That was the era, and they couldn't find anybody that was fairly conservative. And so I said, no, I can't do it. I'd promised Richard when we married. We sat up till all hours the night before we went and got married, talking about what we expected out of marriage. And one of the compromises that we made was that after we had a family, that I would stay home. He'd wanted me to not be a career wife at all, and I said, no, too many people sacrifice too much for me to go to school. I need to teach as long as I don't have other responsibilities. And, I could be a wife and teach too. But when Mimi came, well, I started staying home. And anyway, I guess I got a hold of him downtown. But anyway, he came in that evening. He said, well, honey, he said, why don't you go ahead and help them out until they find somebody? Well, I had in mind they'd find somebody by midterm. And Richard had in mind they'd find somebody by the next year, that'd be.
Mm-hmm.
And when that first year I taught, I'd never taught him anything but just homemaking, and homemaking's, a little different than the academic courses are. But I didn't know any other way to teach than the way I taught the girls homemaking, and that was to take every kid from where he was, as far as you could go with him, and grade him accordingly, make him, do the best you could. And you didn't. And they taught us, you don't teach a class, you don't teach a subject, you teach a kid, you teach a student. You zero in on a particular student, and you help each one to be better in every way that you can. And that's the way you teach. And that's the way I taught. That. Every kid was important to me. And they taught me you don't throw any kid away. Every one of them's worthy. It didn't make any difference what their daddy did or their mother did. If their mother was turning tricks the night before so they could have food on the table, that was not any of your business. You taught that kid as if he was the president's child.
Right.
And that's the way I tried to teach.
I try to figure out in my mind, probably who was the wildest class. I hear stories of, Ronnie Ainsworth would jump on people's back and peck them like a rooster. And then I know through our years of high school, we had...
Well, there were different kinds of classes.
Yeah.
They were all tamed down pretty good when they came to my class because they liked me.
Right.
And they liked my class.
Mm-hmm.
They enjoyed my class. So I didn't have the trouble that a lot of teachers had. But, I did have from time to time.
But I think that was
anyway,
always...
what I was going to tell you was I said, okay, I'd do it. So by the time that year was out, Richard came home one day and he said, honey, he said, what are you doing that makes your class so different from everybody else's? And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. He said, well, I have friends of mine stop me and say, well, my kid never liked history and he just loves your class.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you must be doing a good job. And if you want to keep doing this, you can do it. I said, I had an idea that a career wife would neglect home chores. He said, I believe our life is better with you when you're working. Said, and I said, and he said, but we don't need the money. He assured me we didn't need the money. He said, I'm making plenty of money. He said, you don't do it for the money. Just do it if that's what you want to do. Well, and every year when it got to be time to sign my contract, as long as he lived, he'd come in and say, now, honey, you don't have to do this again if you don't want to. But I'm proud of the work you're doing. If you want to keep doing it, keep doing it. Every year. But he'd reassure me that I can take care of you, and he could. We had plenty of money that But it was worked out real well because I loved what I did. I loved teaching. I loved those kids. I even loved the troublemakers.
Well, of course. What year did you introduce current events?
I don't know what year.
I graduated in 91.
91. Well, I'd been
It
doing
was
it.
around in '86.
What?
If you,
Current events was around in '86.
Oh yeah, I know. I was gonna try. I'm trying to. I'm trying to think whether it was the late '60s or the early, whether it was in the '70s. But see, I was doing it when Mimi. I was teaching Mimi in the '70s, so probably early '70s. I probably did it for as long. Well, I did it as long as they had the program.
I always enjoyed it because it let the quiet ones that were really smart shine because you wanted them on your team. That's what I always loved about
Well,
it.
it was a real good teaching tool because it brought people. It gave everybody was pretty good at something.
Mm-hmm.
And even those that didn't want to keep up with the current events were going to learn from it because, well, some of them made pointers and, captains and all this, and they could have a job to do, and everybody felt a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we left anybody. There wasn't, well, maybe one or two through the years that just really didn't like the current events today, but I'd say nearly 100% would look forward to current events,
I think so.
and they learned a lot from it. It was a very, very, it was worth the money. I paid for it myself for the first few years, and then I believe it was Mr. Wesley that came in and said, "Well, we'll pay for this. You don't need to keep." He said it. Evidently it got brought back to him how good the program was.
So how did you end up in Ranger? Did you have family here?
I was Mr. Rush was the superintendent, and he came out to North Texas and interviewed people for 2 jobs. He was looking for a math teacher and a homemaking teacher, and he had evidently Sue McIntyre had come from Comanche County and had taught, and then she'd married Buster Cribbs, and they were going on somewhere else. Of course, he hated to lose her because she was a really good one. She was young, just out of college, and he'd gotten her from North Texas, I believe it was. I'm not sure. She may have gone somewhere else, but anyway, he went up there. He interviewed me, and he hired me on the spot. He said, "The job's yours if you want it," and they don't usually do that. They evidently he was just real taken with me and the kind of person that I was. I don't know. He just liked what he saw and thought I'd be fit in good, And I told him I needed to come out and see Ranger. And at the same time, a girl who had ties to my hometown, her mother and daddy had, I believe, grown up in Gustine. Anyway, they moved out to West Texas. Anyway, she was finishing up in math, and she wanted to go out and there and see. So her parents came and got us one weekend, and we drove us to Ranger. We drove up Ranger Hill, and it's hard to believe this now, but I just fell in love with the town coming up. I don't know, it was just something about it. It just spoke to me. I just liked Ranger from the first time I was there.
So you taught in the old school next to the old gym, right?
Yes. Oh, yes. I taught in that old school.
Did that break your heart when they imploded that?
Yes. Oh, yes. It was sad to me. My room upstairs, I had a room upstairs for the junior high, and then I had a room on the second floor for the high school. And the room upstairs was on the north side, and the one on the second floor for high school was down next to the boys' restroom on the second floor on the south side. Lots of kids came through there, lots of them, and lots of success stories. Of course, I have had kids wind up in the pen, but I have a whole lot of them who have made it through, call me later when they got out and say, "I'm going straight," and all the time I was in jail, I remembered some of the stuff you taught us, Miss Henderson, wish I'd listened harder. Anyway, I've had all kinds of, but a lot of those have turned into success stories.
Like Andy Marusak teaching overseas and things like
yes,
that.
Yes, lots of them, see, that's what people consider success stories. Well, Andy was going to make it anyway. He was going to be a success. So I'm not nearly as proud of those kind of accomplishments as I have those who have gone down the wrong path for a while and then decided they'd straighten their lives out and have straightened them out. I won't call any of them by name, but one came by a few years back and he said, won't remember me. I always said, oh, well, yes, I remember you. And he said, he completely turned his life around. And I said, I've prayed for you through the years. And he said, well, your prayers have paid off. Come in, Bill.
All right, I'll
Come
wrap
on
up.
in.